Maybe I should direct this to Brian. Is Jaylen Brown in or out tonight? Is that a don't know or he's out? Don't know. Okay. You got Cam Johnson's going to play. Is it good that maybe there's like different guys available? You know, you're on the back-to-back against the same team. That maybe it's like almost like it's a different game.
I mean, it'll be a different game from the standpoint. You know, one of our starters didn't play last game, and so our offensive attack was different. Our defensive attack was a little bit different, and so that changes it for us. And I think Brooklyn, you know, regardless of who's in or who's out, they have a DNA of kind of the way they play, regardless of their lineup. Most of the guys are, you know, pretty much about the same. They could beat you off the dribble at any time. They could shoot, and they switch and they defend. And so it's more about the DNA of their team and how we defend and attack that throughout the game.
Obviously, you're trying to win these games, but is there like a trying to prove a point where you post up so much early? I know you were joking around about it after the game last night, where you post up so much early, you had 20 points in the paint, but you're still only up 3 at that point,
yeah.
And then you hit 4 3-pointers, and then you extend the lead. Like, is there some kind of like point that you're making in that moment of like, see, this is what I'm talking about?
No, I mean, I think, you know, we've played against the last few games. We've played against teams that have switched a lot more. Like the 5 hasn't been on KP nearly as much as he was in the Miami game. He was, but in the Washington game he wasn't. Last night he wasn't. I mean, last night he didn't play. Last time we played them, they switched. And so it's kind of where the math comes into play of like finding that balance of knowing we can get closer to the basket, we can get them. But when you play against certain teams, the opponent matters. You know, there's certain teams where they bring into every game a variance factor that they're willing to play with. And it's a slippery slope when you have a team that's willing to play the variance of their ability to have 33 to 36% three-point shooters and shoot a ton of threes and switch you and force you to kind of play in the post. And so every possession you're looking at a near guaranteed 2 or, you know, a really good shot versus the variance of constant threes. And so there's a few teams in the league that do that. Brooklyn's, you know, potentially one of them. With the way they shoot, and you know, so you kind of have to find that balance. But I think that's kind of where we're at, right? Is that balance of how do we get great shots consistently, you know, but at the same time, how do we make sure we're playing sound basketball the way we want to? That's a good point.
I could be wrong, but your joke last night seemed like a response to Kendrick Perkins, and I think you've had another joke kind of referencing some of the stuff he said. How do you deal with the criticism like that? Does that stuff motivate you? Does some of it stick with you? Like, how do you handle the outside noise that comes with being the coach of the Boston Celtics?
I've grown to absolutely endear it and love it, and I think it's beautiful. And as I said before, if you wish for things to be different than what they are, it comes with the job. It's the expectation. It doesn't mean you can't have fun. You just can't take yourself too serious. You know, you should laugh at yourself. You should also laugh at other people. You should love yourself and love other people, and you should just have fun while you're doing it. So this is the responsibility that you have, is handling those expectations, and you just got to embrace them. And I don't believe in ignore the noise. You know, I just don't believe in that, because you're not going to ignore something negative, but then wish to get like praise. You know what I mean? Like, everybody lives in this world of like, oh, ignore the noise, but if someone says something good about you, you know, you should listen to that. You know. You should hear both of it, and you should decipher what's true, and then you just kind of move on from there.
If you don't ignore it, how do you kind of handle it? Like, how do you look for this stuff like that? Does it come
I mean, that's
to
probably
you?
one of my strengths. I'm working on it for Lent, not looking for it.
Then how do you kind of, instead of ignoring it, like, how do you try to use that?
I use it in my stand-up comedy acts in the locker room before the game. But really, it comes down to like, I took this class on emotional intelligence once, and it said that everybody's 10% right. Just sometimes some people are only like 2% right.
Speaking of blocking out the noise, everyone always looks at the last game before the All-Star break, and they see it as
narrative.
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's human nature to fight.
Do you
against
remember
that.
even who we played last year?
I do not.
Think about that. So think about that.
No, but everyone else.
No,
does.
you didn't remember that. Everyone else did. Yes.
I didn't remember. But how do you fight against that human nature that
Blake dove on a loose ball in front of Detroit's bench? I got
so
crowded into it.
He found
I remember that game vividly.
But how do you?
2 years ago we went to
in
the finals.
team,
We lost that game. So the correlation of tonight's result versus the end result of where we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
But for the particular night,
Yeah.
how do you fight against that? I mean, there is human nature that kind of looks forward and looks for a few days off and all that stuff. How do you avoid that and concentrate on the task at hand?
Again, because I'll get asked, the players will get asked, it's there. And so it's a matter of focusing on execution. Last night we gave up 15 points in transition, gave up 21 points on inch outs and in spot ups because of some breakdowns in our individual defense at times. Our spacing at the end of the third, the beginning of the fourth, we had a 20-point quarter. So I think it's just focusing on those 3 or 4 things that we know we have to get better at, regardless of kind of the environment around us,
And then, as you've always said, you'd like us to ask you things about off the court. Did you hear what happened with the Kansas City parade?
Yeah, I just saw that.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Any comment on that situation?
I mean, it just goes to the point of you never know what someone's going through in a situation, and it's also unfortunate that, innocent people have to be in the way of things like that, and so it's disheartening to see, in my opinion. You go to something like that to celebrate, and you end up getting something completely different, and it's just tough because of what people go through on a daily basis and how innocent people are impacted by that,
Last 2 questions, Gary and Steve. Joe, what are you doing during the All-Star break?
It's a personal question.
Are you going to watch game tape, or are you going to, not saying where you're going with the family, but what are you going to do off the field?
So I have a list of 10 to 12 things that we need to get better at as a team, and so I'll go through the calendar of the games and figure out when those things become thematic, when we need to institute them, and how we can approach, whether it's a practice or a shoot around, making those themes important to where we're trying to get to. So I'll definitely plan that. That's probably about it.
And this is personal. You care to share what you're giving up for Lent?
15 minutes of silence. Got a big, I'm going to try that, Make sure we're rooted, grounded, getting ready for this tough stretch we have coming up in the playoffs. So just kind of want to, make sure I'm ready to go. It's kind of like a training camp, so to speak, before we get ready, Thanks for asking. That's a good question. I can answer those ones all day long.
With the All-Star break, obviously you coached in the All-Star game last season. Is there value for you to kind of maybe reset or take a step back, just kind of take a deep breath for the second half, or how do you kind of approach that?
As I said before, I don't really like breaks. Don't really understand them. Because then you need a break coming from the break. It's like, what? Why'd you take the first break to begin with?
I see last night you guys did a little haka with Claxton and Ben. Obviously, if you're in the penalty, and I'm sure you're taking into account obviously the shooters, what other things do you look at when deciding, when to do it, whether you're up by a certain amount or where the game is at in a certain situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you can go 1.0 point per possession, you should have a chance to do that. So that was kind of the framework of you take a look at, they have a high-powered offense, and with the variance in her ability to score at a high level from 3 in transition, if you can at least get 1.0 points per possession, I think you look to do that. And I think a lot of times some people do that when they're losing to kind of catch up, but I think it's a different perspective to kind of do it when you're winning, because it allows you to, like I said, get stops, so to speak, from an analytical perspective, and also set up your offense and look to execute. So I think it just that calls different times of the game. It can call for it.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks.